another important crime fiction author, Tassos Papanastasiou. So he will be talking with the author. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Είμαστε εντάξει. Okay. Φίλες και φίλοι, καλησπέρα.
Good evening, dear friends. We apologize for the slight technical problem. We are here with Irsa Sigurðardóttir. I have rehearsed her name several times in order to be able to pronounce it correctly. On the occasion of her new book, The Doll, published by Metechmio. I have prepared lots of questions so that you'll get to know Irsa better and to think the way she writes and thinks. But this morning, as Irsa, her husband, and my wife were here in Thessaloniki, I got to know her so well that I changed the questions I had prepared. And now I'm ready to ask my first question. What about Thessaloniki? How did you find Thessaloniki?
Yes, fabulous. You have what we don't in Iceland. In Iceland, we have beautiful nature, but we don't have this historical remains and things because we were so poor. We built everything from mud, and that just doesn't last. So to see the ruins and the food, you have really good food. And that, yeah, it was really lovely, really lovely.
Ήμασταν στο Επταπύργιο.
We were in Eptapyrio, in Rotonda. In Eptapyrio, we talked about its history, that it was used as a prison.
In the weather competition with Iceland. So.
I think, νομίζω πως στην Ισλανδία είναι καλύτερα.
I think that the weather in Iceland is better for me because I feel really hot. So the weather in Iceland is better for me. As you know, the need to tell fairy tales to our children and amongst us goes back to the antiquities. It goes back to the time the people had to gather together and spend their nights together in all times. And this need still exists. It is our need to read about things that get away of reality and they are not on the focus of our daily life. In order to do that, you need specific skills. We are here with one of the best storytellers. Irsa Sigurðardóttir is an exceptional storyteller to talk about the way she thinks, she functions, she operates, she works. which is very complicated. It is as complicated as her books are. Could you tell us, Yrsa, a few words about your book, The Doll? You showed me the real photo.
The Doll is a crime fiction novel. It is I think the fourth or the fifth in the series with policeman Huldar and child psychologist Freya. And in the book, a doll comes out of the ocean in a fishing trawler net, and the person who takes the doll home dies that same evening. And I had the inspiration for this story was an actual doll that came into a net, and I got sent a picture from a reader, and it was, ooh, you know, it had like holes where the hair plugs, barnacles, worms, one eye missing. It was fantastic. So I kept the photo for like 2 years, thinking, oh, I'll use this later and write a horror book about this doll. But then I thought, this has been done so many times, dolls in horror, Chucky, Annabelle. So I thought, no, I'm going to try to find a way of using it in a crime novel. So it's there, and I hope it worked, the story.
Η αλήθεια είναι πως γράφουν
The truth is that those of us who write and those of us who read so that we will be able to explain the world. What is the way that you think about the world around us? What is the way that you perceive the existence of human being?
Human beings, yeah, I think we're crazy, but yeah. I mean, I think, you know, humans are probably, you know, to be any animal on the planet, a human is the best to be. But what has always intrigued me is life is very difficult, always. Humans will always find a way to make it more difficult by adding strange things to what we have to do. So, yeah, humans are a little bit crazy, but they are the best, though, yeah.
λίγο τρελοί,
A bit crazy, yes, they are the best species. You were a successful writer of children's books, and then you turned to crime fiction. How did this thing happen?
How did I move to child fiction? I started off writing for children. The reason I did that was because my son was not reading. And the Icelandic children's book at the time were not that great. There was a fashion to have children's books had to be teaching them a lesson about how difficult life was, and they were just really not very interesting for kids that weren't readers. So I thought maybe I'll write children's books with a strong storyline and humor. And I wrote 5 books. He never read any of them. I was very worried he would be a bad person, because I think what you have to read as a child to become empathetic. Because when you read, it's not like watching a movie when you're outside looking in, but the story is taking place in your head, and you read about the thoughts of characters. So you're able as a child to experience things, put yourself in other people's shoes. So my worry was that my son would be a bad person. But he never read them, but he was a good person. He's okay, yeah. But then after writing 5 books for children, I won the Icelandic Children's Literary Award for a book that I was like, I don't know, I didn't really, that was my least favorite. So I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. If they think this is the best book, maybe I'll just stop now. So I stopped writing. But after 2 years, I found this need to write again. And this time for grown-ups. And also, being funny is much more difficult than being horrible. So, and horrible is like a huge pit of all kinds of things. Funny is like walking on a tightrope, because you can easily try too hard or not too hard, and it's an art, much more than awfulness.
Μίλησες για...
You talked about the need to write. You talked about the need to write. What is this need to write for a human being?
For me, it's often, I mean, it gives you the opportunity to control everything in your book. So you can have a just ending to things that very often don't end in a good way in real life. So it's a need for, you know, if you have an active imagination, it's also a way to get rid of that, like the urges. But mainly it's like I tend to pick topics that are being widely discussed, and I look at them and I think, okay, people cannot agree on this, and so that's a very good opportunity to why, you know, a topic that nobody can agree on must be a really good and interesting topic to put in a book. Make it so that it's, yeah, ends up horribly.
Όσο διαβάζεις τα βιβλία της Ήρση,
While you book Irsa's books, you realize that the relationship between the heroes and death and the way she approaches this inevitable end has to do with Stoicism. I will read two extracts. The first is by Mark Aurelius. Mark Aurelius was a Roman emperor who was not one of the initiators of Stoicism. Do not resent death, but think of it in a pleasant way, because death is what nature wants. I will read an extract by one of Irsa's interviews. I believe that when you live near nature, you are more coordinated. We live and die, and there is no reason to lose your mind because of this inevitable fact. My question is the following. The Icelandic landscape plays an important role in all your books. Perhaps in reality it is a character in your books. Without this character, your books wouldn't be the same. The description of natural landscapes, the role of nature and its order, does it underline the Stoicism idea about death and makes this death presence inevitable? Is it too much complicated, what I've told you?
I think in Iceland, nature, the weather, the ocean, the geothermal, it's such a big part of life. It can be in one day snowing, raining, wind, you know, it has a really big influence on everything. We use the nature to make electricity, we use the ocean to have fish, but all of this takes its toll. So fishing, you have people drowning, the fishermen drowning. With the nature that gives us the heat, to heat the houses and so on, you get volcanoes, you get earthquakes. And just now we had a whole town that it's been evacuated, and they will never live there again because a volcano just poop came up in the backyard. Yeah, from nowhere. So it's nature gives and nature takes. And I think, you know, you only have to drive for like 15 minutes from Reykjavik and you're out in nature. So we understand, and I think people do, but maybe more if you are very much in touch with nature, that life is a cycle. You know, you're born, you die, and so on. So, yeah.
Και δεν πρέπει, sorry, you must wear your headphones, sorry. Και δεν πρέπει
And you must not be worried about that you will live and die.
No, because I think, like, what I think is okay, you get some years, use them wisely, try to enjoy life. If we all lived forever, there would be no children. There would be no space for new people. And I am very willing to give up my spot for a child, yes.
Να πούμε λίγα ακόμα λόγια.
I'd like us to talk a bit more about the doll, about your book. It is 3 stories, right? Is it one? In one book.
It's the story about the main characters, the protagonists, and then there is the story of the girl whose mother dies when they find the doll in the boat, and what happened to her after. And then there is the story of some friends that did something, bad. And the theme of the book was basically how very often children in the system are treated badly. And also, when I wrote it, there was this start of this opioid epidemic in Iceland. Because Iceland has not had serious drug addicts because it's an island, very strict on drugs. So if you were a serious drug addict, you could not live there because you could not trust that you could get your drugs. So they would go to Denmark or Holland. So, but after the opioids come, which you can get from a doctor, then we started to have like serious drug addicts living in Iceland. Yeah.
Ο τίτλος του βιβλίου, η κούκλα,
The title of the book, The Doll, and the fact that the axis of the book talks about child abuse, declares that although you shifted from children's literature to crime fiction literature, there is a nuance of the evil in all these, even at childhood, in children's abuse. There is this nuance of evil in society, in real life.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when I started writing, I thought, okay, like for grown-ups, I thought there are certain things I am never going to be able to write about. I don't want to go there. But then you write more and more and more and more, and you get more awful, and you get more awful, and then you realize there's nothing really that that I can write about all kinds of things, which is not nice for me as a person, but yeah. But the main thing I think when you're writing, for example, about child abuse, is that you do it respectfully for any victim. You don't put it in there for fun or entertainment. You put it in there because you want to approach a topic, and you do it with respect for anyone who might be reading who this might have happened to, if you understand what I mean.
Έχω γράψει για το εμπόριο.
I have written about human trafficking and the Holocaust. Many friends who know me, you tell me you're a good man and you talk about the evil in such a violent way. Where can this stop in your books, where you write so many things? Additionally, there is a concern that perhaps we give ideas to people who want to do this stuff.
I think to be able to recognize and realize what is bad, you need to be good. So I have never met a crime writer that is a bad person. Usually they're good people because they realize this is bad. So this is a topic that I will talk about. I think if you're a psychopath, you could not write a good crime novel because you wouldn't know what is awful and what is good and so on. But what was the end of the question again?
Αν δίνουμε ιδέες,
If we give ideas to those people who want to do something bad. So, yeah.
Really hope not. I really hope not, because there is, in one of the books, there is a murder method that I invented, which was it was the 10th crime novel that I wrote, and I was just tired of stabbing and choking, and so I invented a new murder method with a vacuum cleaner, and I really hope nobody uses that. I would feel terrible.
Όταν γράφω σκηνές δύσκολες,
When I write about difficult scenes, about rape scenes that I had to use in my human trafficking book, I feel very bad. I leave my office, and when I stop writing this scene and I go to the living room to talk to my wife and play with the cat to feel better. What do you do when you write about such things?
I talk to my husband, yeah, yes. But when I am writing, yeah, he's somewhere here. When I'm writing, what I prefer, some people listen to classical music, some people need complete silence. I write in front of a TV with horror movies. Yeah, not to watch them, not to like, but because the music, the build-up of its atmosphere, and the vacuum book, I wrote while watching, I think, 6 seasons of The Walking Dead. So every time I looked up, someone was being killed with an axe. You know, so.
ποιο κομμάτι του εαυτού σου υπάρχει στους ήρωές σου?
Which part of your personality do you identify in one of your heroes?
I probably am most like Huldar, the policeman, I guess. Not that, because he's like all over the place sleeping with women. I'm not sleeping all over the place with men. No. But his way of, he's very relaxed, and he's a smoker. So yeah, so he's.
Την αγάπησα, sorry.
Yes.
Την αγάπησα γιατί αυτή...
I loved her because her and her husband they are smoking, while my wife, who is a cardiologist, does not like me smoking. So we were 3 people smoking this morning. So I'm very happy for that.
The reason I don't quit smoking is I've smoked for 40-something years. So if I quit smoking now, I will be in a bad mood for probably 5 years. And what do I get? 5 years at the very, very end. Not a good deal, I think, no.
Τι κομμάτι των δικών σου ανθρώπων υπάρχει στους...
What part of your people do you identify in your heroes, of all of your children, of your grandchild, etc.?
Don't base my characters on actual people, but you take, you know, through life you meet all kinds of people, and so you have like a soup to work from, or like ingredients. So you take maybe a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person, especially in Iceland because it's so small. So you don't want people recognizing themselves in a book. But even if you do, people tend to have completely the wrong opinion about themselves. So they would never really recognize themselves, even if you put them in a book. So.
Δεν το είχα σκεφτεί αυτό, εξαιρετικό.
I've never thought of that. This is excellent. So what are you afraid of when you write? What are you afraid of?
Afraid of anything, like for me, except heights. But if it's like a mountain, I'm okay with heights if it's engineered. I'm not afraid on a plane or a roller coaster or elevator, just on a mountain. But I think what I'm most afraid of when I'm writing, and I think this is a good thing to have as a writer, is I am always worried it's not going to be good enough. Because if I'm mostly scared of the days when you think, oh, this is fantastic. Because if you're always worried about how this is not good enough, then you will try to make it constantly better. And that, I think, helps me when I'm writing, to always look at it very critically and go back and fix and so on. Yeah.
Η συγγραφέας πρέπει να τα έχει.
The author must feel good with himself or with herself. That's what we say in Greek, because we spend a lot of time with ourselves. So we have to feel good about ourselves. So how do you try to balance this?
Oh, I have never thought about this. Yeah.
It's time for thought.
But I don't think I'd want to be alone with me always. No.
Ας πάμε λίγο...
Now, let's go to more technical questions with regards to your book, and we will have time for questions from our audience later on. So, how do you collect the information for your books? Do you only use Google or other sources as well?
I'm like a method actor, you know, these actors that go crazy and you know, if they're a boxer, then they go learn boxing. So I always have to do, like, be in every location that's been written about. And I have gone, like the book I just finished last year takes place on a fishing trawler. So I managed to get a captain to take me, and so I went on a fishing trawler for many, many days with a crew. I have taken a course in forensic pathology, you know, these autopsies, because one of the characters is an autopsy. I have taken diving lessons because there was a diving scene. So I feel the need to see it 3D. Of course, there's Googling too, but if you talk to people and visit places, you get like little bits of quirky information that make it somehow realistic. Whereas there's lots on the internet, but you won't get the 3D. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Όταν ξεκινάς...
When you start writing, do you already have the end in your mind, or the characters are the one to define the end? The characters that are developing while you are writing your story?
Like when I start the first chapter, I don't have the whole picture. But before I reach 10, I know exactly where I'm heading. And I find it much easier to know the end, because there are certain things you're trying to hide from the reader. And if you don't know what you're hiding, then it will maybe be too obvious. And yeah, so I like to know where I'm going, yeah. So I know the beginning, I know the end, but how I go from the beginning to the end, that will change.
Και πόσο καιρό σου πήρε για να γράψεις την κούκλα, ας πούμε?
How long did it take you to write the doll, for example?
About, I would say like 9 months, like a baby, yeah, like carrying a baby.
Με την έρευνα μαζί?
With the research?
No, I mean, I write a book a year, so there are 3 months where I'm thinking, and then I do research, and I do research while I'm writing also as well. Because the trick with research is that you don't have to become the world's best specialist in the subject. Because if you do that, if you go totally overboard, then you don't remember what do people know in general? What did I know in the beginning? So then you also sometimes get the urge to info dump. Oh, I've put so much work into this research, I have to get it out there. And so the trick is to do the right amount. And then you can always add if you need later on in the book. Yeah.
Okay. Στην Ισλανδική κοινωνία,
In the Icelandic society, from what I know, you don't have a high criminality, crime rate. So the issues that you are addressing, like child abuse or women abuse, these are social issues. Tell us a few words about the Icelandic society.
It's a good society. It's a Nordic society with social safety nets to catch people. But there are, of course, things that are wrong. And it's people. So we have our share of good people, bad people, and we have the same problems every society has when it comes to violence and so on, but less murder. And in Iceland, women are killed more than men, which is very unusual. In most countries, it's men killed more because it's gangs. So I think there are 5 countries in the world where women are murdered more, and Iceland is one of them. Maybe Greece is also. Greece also? Yeah, okay. So it's a nice society with its problems. It used to be better, I think, in the old days, because in the old days it was very, very flat. So there were no super rich, and there were no, there were, of course, people who had less and people who had more, but the difference between the less and the more was very small. But now we have a more divided society. But the good thing is everybody goes to the same school. There's no private school. So you grow up with the same kids in a daycare and everyone is going to the, so it's the same, yeah.
Το πρωί, όπως ήμασταν στο Επταπύργιο,
In the morning, when we were at the Pavilion and at the prison, we were talking about the complicated Greek history. And you told me that in Iceland, there was never a war. There was no war during the Second World War, so Iceland was a bit isolated.
Never been a war in Iceland. There's one war, the Cod War, when we were fighting the UK over fish. And that took place like on boats around the country, and we won. But it's not because we were so great, but the American army had a base in Iceland, and they told the UK, stop this bullshit, go away, and they went. But we say we won, so yeah. But it's small. We don't have any neighbors. Nobody wanted to come and fight with us. We don't have an army. So, and when you don't have an army, there's more money to spend on culture. So there's a lot of money poured into writers' grants, artist grants, and so on. Yeah.
Υπάρχει μια περίοδος, αν δεν κάνω λάθος, στην
I think there was a period in Iceland around Christmas that is dedicated to books, right? Could you tell us a few things about that?
We call it the Christmas book flood, and it's because during the Second World War, there was very little imports coming into the country, but for some reason we had a lot of paper. I have no idea why, because we don't have any trees, so this paper must have been there somehow, yeah. And so that was the thing that you could give was like a book for Christmas, because that was involved an Icelandic writer writing a book. They printed it, and so you couldn't buy anything else. But this has stayed a tradition, so everyone gets a book. Some get 5, some get 1, some get 2 for Christmas. So this is the only market where the publishers can actually make money off books is selling them for Christmas, because it's so few people. Such a small market.
Είσαστε 400.000 οι κάτοικοι.
You are 400,000 citizens, right? Along with the immigrants.
180,000, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They said 400,000, this national registry, but they're really bad at what they do, so they came back like the day or 2 days after. Oh, sorry, no, we're only 380,000.
All right. Έχετε
You have Polish immigrants, right? So how do you welcome them in your society?
Yeah, the biggest group of immigrants is from Poland, and we're very happy that people, because before nobody wanted to move to Iceland. You know, nobody wanted to come. We had no immigrants. And they would go, the government would go to places where there was maybe like a flood or something horrible happening, and they would go with photos to show, to try to get people to come from refugee camps. Like, no, it's not a bad country. It's not ICE. It's like a good country. But then, so it started maybe, I think, in the bank crash more, and now we have, I think it's 25-30% of the country is now immigrants. We're very happy to have them. It's complicated with the language, and it's sad that Iceland, for some reason, hasn't realized they should give people free lessons. So when you come as an immigrant, you have to work all day, and then you're supposed to go buy lessons. So it should be, you know, when you come, you just get paid by the government to study it for 6 months, and that's what I would do if I was in charge. But because the language is such a big part of becoming completely in society, and making sure, if you're an immigrant, that your children have the same opportunities. Because if you can't help them with their homework, and you don't understand what anybody's saying, then it's...
Όλες σου ιστορίες...
All your stories are taking place in Iceland. Have you ever thought of writing a book that takes place outside Iceland? Maybe at Heptapyrion?
I have written once a book that takes place not in Iceland, and that was in Greenland, and it was because I'm an engineer, and I had been working, I was the technical manager for like a huge power plant. And I wanted to write about like living in your workspace because it's really strange. And I was there for 4 years, but I didn't want it to be in Iceland because people would think I was writing about this project. So I placed it in Greenland. But that's the only time I've done it, and I don't think I would ever choose to do that because I think for me as a reader, for example, if I want to read a book taking place in Greece, I want it to be by a Greek writer. And every country has great writers. They don't need me to come and try to write about their countries, you know.
Είπες και πριν ότι γράφεις συνήθως στον καναπέ.
So you said that you usually write sitting on your sofa with your TV on. You never use a desk. You never write elsewhere?
Oh, I mean, I can, but this is what I like it best in a sofa, yeah. Yes.
Τι λένε οι δικοί σου άνθρωποι για τον...
What do your family and your friends say for the fact that you are isolated in front of your laptop, in front of your TV? What about the needs of your people?
My friends, you know, my family, my friends, the writing is just something I do. It's not discussed. My husband doesn't read my books, which is probably why we're still married. But yeah. So it's just like a job, I think. So it doesn't matter if I'm at the office or I'm writing at home. It's just, yeah.
It is a job. Είναι μια δουλειά, ναι.
Yes, it is a job. So at this point, since we have time left, I would like to ask you if there is any question that you would like to address to Isa. Any question? Because this smiling lady sitting next to me is writing such difficult and rough stories.
Θα ήθελα να ρωτήσω σχετικά με το πρώτο βιβλίο.
I would like to ask you about her first book called The Revenge. It is one of the most frightening stories I have read. Were you inspired by a local legend or did you imagine it yourself?
Inspired by this location where it's taking place. You're talking about the people that go to refurbish the house on this island, or the one in the Highlands. Which one?
Στην εξοχή όταν ήταν, ναι.
When they were in Highlands, about the island.
Actually inspired by a story from Russia called the Dyatlov Pass incident. It's an old unsolved mystery, and it's about a group of students who are studying geology, and they go with their professor on a course that's supposed to be about surviving in the winter in a mountain. So they go, and they're supposed to come down after a week, but they don't come down. Then they're found like here and there and here and they're all dead. So that's the inspiration for that story. Yeah.
Ωραία, ευχαριστώ.
Ευχαριστούμε.
Thank you very much for being here. It's a great honor for us. I'd like to ask you about the DNA book of yours. How did you experience this book while writing it?
I wrote it. I know it's made up, so it doesn't very much disturb me. Yeah. Yeah, because I wrote it. I know it's fantasy, so I'm never, you know, upset by what I'm writing or afraid or nothing like that, yeah. But I was very angry when I wrote it, yeah. That's sometimes a good inspiration, yes.
Ναι, ναι, εκεί.
Hello. I want to ask you if, looking back at the various stories you have written, do you ever thought about, oh, maybe I should have written another ending in that one, or maybe this should have not ended like that? Does that something that crosses your mind?
It does sometimes, yes. Sometimes you think like, oh, I could have put something more in, and I could have, but you just, you try not to think like that, yeah. And sometimes you think when you get, for example, because I can read English, so when the translation into English arrives, sometimes I think, oh, I could fix stuff, but then no, it's better to just stay the way it was, because if you fix something here, it might end up like a big mess. So yeah, but I do, yes, of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
Άλλος, άλλη, κάποια ερώτηση? Ναι, η κυρία πίσω σας, από την... Εκεί.
Καλησπέρα και από μένα.
Good evening. I'd like to ask you, which are your favorite writers that have influenced your writing?
I'm a huge fan of Stephen King, like in the early books. I mean, that was for me when they started coming out. That was just like fabulous. I was so happy. I have read so much. I like of course Joe Nesbo, Lars Kepler. A lot of the old, like I loved Agatha Christie as a teenager. They're very, very well plotted. And yeah, lots of writers. I think the inspiration, I think it's like a building block. You know, you can't really point, it's this one. It's everything that you have read. Don't you agree? Yeah, that everything that you have read from a childhood up, that will make you understand also what is a story, what is a novel. You know, if you're not a reader, I don't think you can be a writer. You have to understand storytelling, and that comes by reading. Good authors, yeah.
Ναι, εκεί αν μπορείτε να το πάμε. Εκεί. Ευχαριστώ.
I'd like to have your comment to this note. You are a small country, as you have mentioned. Still, you have three great crime novelists. Yourself, Arnie, and Arnaldur.
Yes.
How come?
Sorry.
How come in a small country like Iceland has three great novelists?
Yeah, I think it's because part of it is because there were no Icelandic crime novels until around 2000. Because the publishers didn't want to publish them because they thought the readers are not gonna, this is, you know, in Iceland, people are killed, and when the police arrive, the murderer is standing there drunk with a knife. You know, there was no hiding evidence, nothing, not even trying to get away. So Arnaldur kind of broke that barrier, but because it started quite late, it means that all of the ideas are still there. That's one of the things. And the other thing is, I think that our literary sort of heritage, or what is considered, especially in Scandinavia, as good literature, is usually like very depressing, very depressing. Everyone has to be alcoholic and So this fits very well into the crime novel. So yeah, so that's part of it as well, to have like a awful thing in the book. Yeah.
Υπάρχει μια παλιά
There is an old discussion whether crime fiction is literature per se or not. What do you think about it? Is it?
Yeah, it's literature, and that's what makes literature fantastic, is that you can have all kinds of books. If there was only one kind of book, books would slowly disappear. And one of the things that shows that it's real literature is that it changes. So you don't have the same crime novels today as you did, for example, when Agatha Christie was writing. So it changes, and it is very often a better vehicle to touch upon social issues than fine literature. And my theory is that all books are about the reactions people have and the feelings people are dealing with because of something that happens. So And we get the feelings that make you do bad things. So that we have hate and anger and, you know, the jealousy, that type of thing. While fine literature deals more with angst, like sadness, regret, and that type of thing. It's more about like characters and how they deal with their inner feelings. But we are dealing with things that make you go boom. Those kind of feelings, yeah.
Υπάρχει κάποια άλλη ερώτηση, κάποιος?
Are there any further questions? So I would like to conclude and close with Marcus Aurelius one more time. At one point, Marcus Aurelius has written in the Greek language, although he was a Roman emperor, and he has written texts about himself or to himself, thinking about life at the moment that he was in campaigns. They can have a resort that is to have expensive holidays and buy expensive clothes. The best thing is to find a shelter to yourself. There is no better place to find a shelter but to find a shelter in yourself. Do you agree that writing is such a self-shelter for you?
It's a way of, yes, shelter, and it's also a way of somehow getting stuff out of your head, yeah.
Okay. Αν δεν υπάρχει κάτι να ρωτήσω εγώ το εξής.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to ask you the following. If I remember correctly, in your book, The Prey, yeah. You have a facility, an installation from the American occupation in Iceland. Have you visited that place? Have you seen that place?
Yes. I went there, and it's a NATO base because Iceland is in NATO. So it's like a big ball. It's like a radar station, and I went there, thankfully, because one of the things, for example, you go in there and there's only 2 guys working there, and they are like, it's all about like, oh, this is built so if a nuclear bomb hits, we're okay, and there's the spy satellites and la la la, and then we go outside, and they want to show me something else, some other building, and they give me an umbrella, and we are all standing there inside with an umbrella, about to go out, and I say, oh, is this because of the spy satellites? And this is down by the beach. And they say, no. There are so many birds. They're going to shit on your head. so it's things like this that you learn by going to places that you can't Google this. So.
Έχει ενδιαφέρον να μας πεις πώς.
It would be interesting for us to tell us how you built up your characters. Do you read their resume, their CV? How do you build up your characters? Do you write their CV, their resume?
No, I keep sometimes notes, just like points about this character, that, and because in Iceland we don't use last names. So sometimes I can't remember in which book, because it's important for foreign markets that they have a full name. And so I have to go back and try to find in my books what last name did I choose for these main characters. And that's annoying. And I should keep a better list of that, yeah.
Όταν ετοιμάζω τους χαρακτήρες των...
When I prepare the characters of my books, I build up their CV. I'm writing that Tassos was born there, he studied there. Do you do the same thing as well, so that you have your character in your mind?
No, but I will now. Yeah.
Okay. Γιάννη, είμαστε εντάξει, θα έχουμε άλλο χρόνο.
Do we have more time? No, we must leave this hall for the next event. Thank you very much. We have got to know Yrsa better. Yrsa will be signing her books at Pavilions 15, Stand 40, Metechmion Publications. Thank you.
Thank you.